In the heart of the eastern region lies Noka, a colorful farming community that holds a tale of determination, resilience, and a hunger for education. But in this community, a silent struggle exists. Noka, with its warm-hearted people, lack a fundamental pillar for its children, a school. For years, children trekked several kilometers to distant communities to access education. But in their quest to quench their thirst for knowledge, they get knocked down by speeding vehicles. As a result, many parents stop their children from going to school.
Sometimes I had a school call. Obi wo ho to me say chio no gina kwan nim na car no so gina wo say chen. Me ma me yi no. Ende bebre aha kwan de aye ma school for na bebre. Na se akromo si obi wo kwan so car na bo no nkola mpanyifo ye yen ha car bo wa unya wutin didim coded flat can say aye
yan mpanyifo kra car bo yen ebi wo boniti na atetew aban so bema yen bidi a yesren yen pese mo friend betwa kwan ni makobiem.
Meet Eunice Esiedua Itapon, a trained teacher. In May 2023, she requested to be transferred to teach in the eastern region. That was the only way to be close to home and take care of her aged parents. Eunice was excited when her request was approved, and she had been transferred to Noka MA Basic School. Her excitement soon fades when she discovered the Noka Basic School does not exist.
I seek for assurance in Sawoma Dweji Municipal, and I was given Noka Primary School. So it was Noka MA Primary School. That was what was on the letter. So I proceed and I had the release. So this academic year, that is 2023-2024 academic year, that was when I was released. So right after I had to bring my document to the municipal. So when I got there, I had to pass by the school to see places. But when I came, when I met the town folks, I asked, I'm coming to Noka, and they told me the school is not yet completed. So when they told me that, I was surprised.
I had the information that a teacher was posted to the school. So I quickly informed the chief and the people of the town so that we can organize our children to start with the school. And that is what we have done. That is why you can see pupils over here. Now we are not schooling in the school building. It's somebody's chapel that the president has offered us that we should be here until the room is completed.
This is the school Eunice has been posted to teach. An uncompleted 6-unit classroom block, a Get Fund emergency project.
The road over here is a major road in Sawam Adesu to Cape Coast and Asamankese. So we thought it twice to establish the school so that those accidents will be avoided.
Sometimes when I sit and think about it, I wonder, because if there is no school, so why do you then post me? But sometimes I just conclude that it's the will of God. Maybe God knows why He sent me here. Because of the kids, maybe He knew I have to come around and start, so the rest will help me. So I'm just holding on to that. Sit, stand, hands up.
About 6 other teachers posted to Noka Basic School didn't return to the community after their first visit. But Eunice Esiedua Itapon was determined to rise above the difficulties and make an impact in the lives of these young ones. Let the mission begin, knocking on one door to the other and inspiring dreams. She gathered the children. With a generosity of heart, Maranatha Power Ministry offered their structure.
It wasn't easy though, but I got help from the assemblyman and the pastor who gave us this temporary structure, that is Reverend Amwa. I had help from one man called Evans Mensah. He was the first person when I came to the place. He told me the structure will be ready very soon, so don't worry. And a lot of your colleagues have been around, they have come and checked the place, so don't worry. They will join you soon. And a lot of people are here, so you shouldn't worry at all. So those people, their words of encouragement, it brought positive vibes, and I decided that this thing I have to start.
Winfield.
Every morning, these learners embark on a symbolic journey to a bright future, carrying chairs to this makeshift classroom. In less than 2 months, enrollment increased, and so did the workload on Eunice.
On the 4th October this year, we started with admissions. And that day, I had 7 people admitted. And day in, day out, admissions increase. And currently we have 107 kids. It's not easy. It's not easy, especially those younger ones who are now starting school. It's not easy. It's not easy for you to get them their concentration. They are hyperactive kids. So sometimes I have to be going around, catching them, letting them sit in between those in the upper classes. Sometimes if I see they are disturbing, I just have to let them sit beside the upper class pupils so that they can monitor them whilst I teach, so it won't distract the class. Looking at the nature of the place and the work itself, the workload, sometimes it's not easy. It's not easy.
In this shared space, children from ages 3 to 15 sit side by side, driven by a collective hunger for education.
Before we learn the new letter,
Eunice, with dedication etched on her face, navigates the challenges of a single-space classroom. The jamming of learners into one space and the workload makes it difficult for Eunice to follow the Ghana Education Service curricula.
For now, I have not started with the curriculum yet. I have not. Because if I say I am going by the curriculum, it's 6 weeks. And 6 weeks, we have different levels. We have different levels among us, so I can't. If we were more than that, I can go strictly according to the curriculum. But because I'm here alone, I can't do that. So I just pick the general thing. They all have to know, then we discuss.
You're in class 1, class 2, and class 3. Not class 4 and class 5. Classes, more classes. I anyway one year and you see on the back when you be a try the corner many way throw no try. Not the strum to you if you're not this range. Yannick KG Funa is seeing as saying if the person are buying burning them for night class will be out on the class.
I can't be out here so Bubiano. I'm a yap, I saw down me in Sasse, won't come answer. Na kusimu kwa aban bobodano so.
In the community, I discussed with them and they said they have asked the churches in the community to give them their building. So if the teachers are around, we would have divided into classes and moved to the various church buildings.
These beginners are practicing how to write the alphabet. With their bare hands, they write the letters in the sand. This may appear unconventional, but their facilitator believes this helps to awaken the learners' imaginative minds.
We kids, we have some kind of imagination. So as you imagine, oh, this is how the person is writing, this is how the hand or the finger is turning. So as you picture that in your mind, you write on the ground as you imagine it in your head. That is why sometimes when they open their books, what they imagined, that is what they write. So that is how when you want to start with writing, you go by air, writing on the individual's back, on the ground, then to the book. If you have tables, we'll be writing on the tables and on the slates, but our slates are few.
Call this a trip back in time or resourcefulness. For these young minds, however, these spoilt batteries are their best bet for a blackboard.
I started with the slates. Someone brought a slate, so I started with the slate. I write on the slate, then they copy. So it was later the community gave us a plywood to use as board. So we have to use the used batteries. So we mixed it with water and we darken the plywood to be used as board.
It is time for lunch, and anywhere, including the floor, serves as a dining table. And when nature calls, these children have to run to their various homes.
Let's say toilet.
Those who cannot make the treacherous journey back home queue to use this unsafe latrine at the church.
Me myself, I am scared of it. So sometimes I quite remember one of the learners. She was crying. She wanted to poop. So I had to tell the senior sister and sending her there. When I realized, they just got a rubber bag and they just let her ease herself and they tied it and went to put it in.
From my political experience, the school will be opened before next year academic year, because definitely is the government of in power who is doing it. We are going to vote by next year December, so they need to commission this school to show the community that they are working before next year academic year.
I say, in Kunyano, for children, near the abasi, your bread, your brands, and now foot through every year. One and talk and now foot through in suit of cry, bit me a shame. It's your swab by some boy and dinosaur mind.
Kepesa bank burning 10 for night class will be out on the class.
They have potentials. Was being with them, I have seen some like to draw. Some also they are creative, and others also academically they are good. So I am hoping if the building is ready, we get enough teachers, we get learning materials, teaching materials. Definitely they will realize their potential and they will get far.
Me and Nancy, I'm a bomb man, and Papa, no more on my Ghana,
As they pledge their loyalty to their motherland, Ghana, these pupils are also saying a silent prayer for their school building to be completed. But until that prayer is answered, Eunice, Helenes, and in fact the entire Noka community will continue to dream of a brighter tomorrow.
Our Father, who art in heaven, And that is the case of our brothers and sisters, the little ones in the Noka community in the eastern region who have to kneel just to learn. Well, joining the conversation this morning, we have Divine Be as we contemplate these entire matters in respect of education. He is Senior Programs Officer at Africa Education Watch. Divine, a very good morning to you. Thank you for joining us.
Very good morning, Benjamin.
You have seen this latest installment of Ghana Schools of Shame. What are your initial reactions?
All right, thank you, and good morning to your viewers. I've just seen Dr. Peter also joining. Good morning, Doc. Yes, for me, this is a situation we have been living with. Our students at the basic education level have been living in for the past 6 to 7 years or so. It has been getting worse over the years. If you look at the data currently, just 40% of pupils in the country are having desks, are without desks. Previously, it was 30%, but the number has increased to 40% in 2021. About 2020 or 2019, the figure was 30% that were not having desks, but fast forward to 2021, that number has increased to 40%, which signals that we are doing little to improve the situation. Even if you disagree the data on a regional basis, some of these regions, the number is above the national average. For instance, if you take Northeast, we are having about 80% of the pupils not having desks, and then you go to the Northern region, as much as 70% of the pupils not having desks. So the picture or the video that I've seen is not surprising, because for us, as we look at the data, we notice that we are not seeing improvements over the years, and it doesn't look like it is a situation we are going to address anytime sooner because of budgetary allocation, how budgetary allocation is going to issues of desks, especially when you look at the GETS fund, you look at what percentage is going to address issues of desk deficit at the basic education level. It doesn't look like we are committed to addressing the situation anytime soon. So for me, I'm not surprised because it's something we've seen, and I just wish that we can show more commitment to this other than what we are doing now.
All right. Let me bring in Dr. Peter Anti. You have also, I want to believe, watched this latest installment of Ghana Schools of Shame. I remember initially when we started with this project, and the education minister at an event, reacted to it by saying that, referring to other schools and saying they were Ghana's schools of fame. But these schools of shame still exist. So it's not to say nothing has been done. A lot has been done. But when we look at these children on the floor doing what they do, it's heartbreaking. But what is your initial reaction to this latest installment from Noka in the Eastern region?
Thank you very much, and good morning to your viewers. As Divine said, it's not surprising to me also. I don't think that we are going to move away from this situation anytime soon. And I say this because I do not see any plan that we have in place to address these challenges that we continuously face with our schools. Ideally, there should be plans put in place to ensure that as we progress in a development journey, these changes, these challenges that come up are addressed as and when they appear. But because we don't have a plan, you would see, as it's been in the case in most instances, that the authorities will visit some of these schools that you are highlighting and then go with the cameras and then supply them with one or two of the things that they need, and then go and sit back in Accra waiting for another documentary to air, and that is what breaks my heart, because these kids are supposed to have what we call quality education, and we boast about quality education a lot. We say that we want to offer quality education to all children, irrespective of your location, your socioeconomic background, your family background. We say that we are offering quality education to the children of Ghana, and we tout this. But you cannot tell me that these kids in this school are being given quality education. There's no hope and future for them. And in most of these schools that you highlight, you will see that it's normally 1 or 2 or 3 people that comes out of the school to be able to progress to the highest level. Mostly these schools, the kids do not get to the highest level in the education journey because we do not give them, we are not able to give them the kind of education that they deserve. So I'm not surprised. And I say that there's no plan. And we are going to continue to witness more of this as your people go on the ground.
Now, you say that there is no plan. What makes you say that, essentially? Because, yes, we are seeing and spotting many more of such institutions. And the worry, now, the lady in question, right? She was assigned to a school. Little did she know that the school actually didn't exist because there was practically nothing. Practically nothing. So she's assigned to a school, but there's technically no school. How do you wrap your mind around that?
Ben, you know that I have studied all basic schools in Ghana. That is the work I did for my PhD thesis. So I know the data offhand from 2000. I mean the year 2000 to 2021. I know the data offhand, and I can tell you, as a matter of fact, that from 2016 to 2021, all our basic schools, in terms of all the infrastructure that they deserve, have deteriorated. And this is data from the Ministry of Education.
You say from when to when again?
From 2015-16 academic year to 2020-2021 academic year, all our basic schools have deteriorated in terms of their infrastructure. And infrastructure goes beyond just the building. It includes certain variables like the decks that Divine is talking about. It includes access to road. It includes access to water, toilet facilities, electricity, computers, school library, and all those things that, if you look into the literature, these are the things that education measures look for when they are talking about education infrastructure. So it's broad. And if you look at the data, you see, the Ministry of Education collects data on the nature of school building. You know that. They collect data on the nature of school building, and they classify the nature of school building into 3. Those that need major repairs, those that need minor repairs, and those that do not need repairs at all. These data are available to the Ministry of Education. And if you look at that data in terms of even nature of school building, you will see that most of our school buildings are going down. So if there's a plan, and this data is available, what I would want to see is that in the year 2016, these were the number of schools that had challenges with their school building in terms of schools that need major repairs. In the year 2017, this number of schools were moved from buildings that need major repairs to buildings that need minor repairs. Nothing of that sort is in the data. Okay, so all we see every day is a complete deterioration of all our basic school infrastructure, and it is disheartening because there's no plan to ensure that at least some of the schools that are even classified as deprived, okay, are moved a little from their deprivation status to, let's say, a level that you can say that, oh, these children are getting some sort of quality education. These are things that are not happening. What I know is going on is that there is an infrastructure mapping that the ministry is doing. The ministry is trying to see how schools are distributed and the level of infrastructure that is available to them. And we should not be doing this in 2023 or 2022 because we are privy to the data. So if you have the data, all that you need to do is to plan. allocate resources to at least 10% of schools facing infrastructure challenges every year. And I tell you that within the shortest possible time, you would see a complete transformation of our basic schools. Again, you should prioritize the schools that you focus on, because you know that you have schools that are deprived like the school that we are talking about. And these schools, when they do the mapping, these schools, they know where they are located. When they do the mapping, the Ministry of Education is doing a GPS mapping of all their schools. They know where these schools are located. So nobody can tell me that they do not know the state of a school like this. Okay, it's just that there's no plan to provide for them. And we leave all these things in the hands of the poor teacher who is transferred into the school, or the headmaster or the head mistress who is supposed to be the highest authority in the school. And they try their best to manage system in such a way that the children get some sort of education. But our authorities do not have a plan to deal with the continuous deprivation of our basic schools. They don't have a plan.
Divine, you've heard Dr. Anti talk about the fact that from the 2015-2016 academic year all the way to the 2020-2021 academic year, these institutions, the basic schools have deteriorated. That's the word he used. How deep, from where you sit, from the data you have, are the woes of such basic institutions? From where you sit, Divine.
Right. As I mentioned earlier, that in the last few years, before 2021, the percentage of basic school pupils not having DEX was just around 30%. But in 2021, that has increased to 40%. And if Doc is saying, rightly so, that we do not have plan, I so much agree with that, because currently the Bible that is guiding the education space is the Education Strategic Plan 2018 to 2030. We have done the first medium term, which span from 2018 to 2021. If you look at the previous medium term plan, and also the new one that we are having 2022 to 2025, you would have realized that we do not have any provision on how we want to address the DEX deficits in our school. All other indicators are in there. For instance, the number of teachers we want to employ each year, and then to address the teacher deficit by 2030. We have the indicator there, and we have the target set for each year. It is there. How we want to improve GSS, SHS transition, we have the indicator for each year. Primary GSS transition, the data is there. So except for DEX, you don't see anything on DEX or sitting place for people. You go there and you don't see any indicator on DEX provision on how we want to address the DEX deficit each year, how many DEX we want to provide each year, so that by the 2030 that the education strategies plan spans up to, we know that, by this time we would have addressed significantly the DEX deficits in our school. There is no indicator over there for you even to see a target set for each of the years that are ahead of us before we attain the end line of the SDG 4, which is 2030. There's nothing there. So I largely agree with Peter when he said that we seem not to have a plan in place for addressing the DEX challenge in our school. Even beyond the education strategy plan, if you look at budgetary allocation to DEX, you have noticed that, look, the situation is serious. It's getting worse, because currently the GETS fund, we all know, is the major dedicated fund for addressing infrastructure challenge in our school. Let's forget about the fact that GETS fund is capped. Yes, we all know that one. But even with the capped GETS fund, what is happening is that we are now shifting significant resources to infrastructure projects. I mean, the GETS fund money, instead of us sending much of the money towards structure, what we are now doing is that chunk of the money is now getting to non-infrastructure projects. If you take the last, or we are still in 2023, so let's say if you take the 2023 GETS fund formula approved by Parliament of Ghana, you are noting that almost 70% of the GETS fund allocation is going to non-infrastructure projects, leaving just about 30% for infrastructure development across all the subsectors of the education sector. So if you have money meant for improving infrastructure in a school, and then you are sending a chunk of the money towards non-infrastructure projects like provision of tablets for SHS students, if you're having instances like that, if you look at it, another one is to promote French. We are using the GET Fund also money to promote French in our school, STEM the related development issues. So we are seeing much of the money now go into non-infrastructure, and just like about 30% going towards infrastructure projects. And out of this 30% that is going towards infrastructure across all the subsectors, 30% is going towards infrastructure at the basic education level. The basic education subsector has the largest infrastructure, and then let me just say infrastructure deficit. Yes, it has the highest, but we are giving 30% of the 30% infrastructure money to basic education. And if you look at it on a whole, the amount of money that we now take out of the allocation for infrastructure to basic education to address the deficits, it is reducing. In fact, the last 2 years, it was 30. We allocated 30 million to provide desks in our school. In 2023, that reduced to 15 million. So that's almost half, not almost half. We have reduced the money meant to, or money we are allocating to.
That indeed is the tail of the tape. And even as you talk of desks, right in your shot, for those who are watching live on TV, you would see, yes, back in the day, we've all seen this before, where the blackboard goes rather white, you can't see much, and then you have to use batteries that have exhausted their use. You split them up, use the dark element in there. And my problem in the 21st century, with everything going on, I mean, I feel as a nation we should have even gone past these blackboards. But here's where we are. Even with the blackboards, the sums of money assigned or allocated are falling, and desks and all of that. But look at what they're exposed to. These elements, these chemicals can be harmful, and they're using their bare hands. The fact that some people did it in the past doesn't mean these young ones also have to come and do it, which tells you about the level of or lack of progress. But coming to you, Dr. Anti, on the bit about the GET Fund and what Divine Pet talks about, non-infrastructural projects, there also is a trend where, for example, you pay the GET Fund levy. You go and make a purchase. You go and eat here. You go and do that. We all pay it. We're paying it. Instead of it being allocated for its purpose, over time, even the finance ministry takes a chunk of it and applies it to non-educational matters, not even non-infrastructural matters over time. How do you feel that is impacting education, especially at the basic level?
So I you see, sometimes I feel that our leaders always want to pay lip service to the things that they are supposed to do. So you cap GET Fund, and because you've capped GET Fund, you are not able to do the things that you are supposed to do with the GET Fund. And we know that by law, that particular fund is supposed to be the sole fund that is dedicated to the education sector in terms of infrastructure improvement and so on and so forth. So if that is not happening, I think members of parliament and authorities should speak up and ensure that right thing is done. The other time I heard my brother Kofi saying that that money that is going to be set aside for special projects by the Ministry of Finance out of the GET Fund, there should be calls to the Ministry of Finance that education should be treated as a priority area in that money that is set aside from the GET Fund. And I seriously agree with him. I think that we need, you see, sometimes we talk about these things and we don't get the needed response from authorities because we cannot do anything to them when they decide to do whatever they want. Because I do not understand why we have a fund dedicated to education and then that fund is capped. And people who are supposed to benefit from that fund, because all of us, we pay the GET Fund anytime we purchase things here and there. And it's supposed to be used to ensure that the children of Ghana get a standard kind of education that they deserve. However, the authorities have decided that they will not channel that resource to improving the education sector, and all of us are quiet. All we do is to talk about it on radio. The parliamentarians are not doing anything to ensure that that fund is used for what it is meant for. It's unfortunate. It's very, very unfortunate. And for me, I think that it is time that we start measuring the performance of our ministers in respect of some of these things. Okay, so every minister comes and wants to do something. He wants to create his or her own path and then proceed and ensure that there's a legacy that he leaves. But the basic things that are supposed to be done, like providing texts, like making sure that every school has got a nice writing board, like ensuring that there is a decent infrastructure in terms of building for students to study in. These are basic things that we have to provide for our children, and there is a fund dedicated to it. So if a minister is not able to ensure that the fund is channeled towards what it's supposed to be used for, then I think that we can assess the minister and say that he's not doing well in terms of ensuring that the Ghanaian child gets the best of education.
Now, this is of interest to me, and I always say it when we have conversations like this. The northern belt of our country has been treated very unfairly in many ways, including educationally. Yes, I know we're talking about the eastern region, but from the data you have, when you look at the educational gaps, I mean, if you look at schools under trees, schools with all kinds of deficits, you would find the chunk of them in the northern belt. I want you to do this. Help me with this exercise, Dr. Anti. The educational gap at the regional levels. What do you see in terms of the tale of the most deprived, especially at the basic level? And what does this mean for increasing, widening inequality gaps into the future? Because like you said, they are all supposed to have a certain basic, deliverable. But some of these children are simply not even getting 10% of that. What does that mean for inequality compared to their compatriots, maybe in Accra, Kumasi, and the rest, moving forward? And where are the worst cases, if you may indulge me on that as well?
Yes. If you study the data, you will see that there's an index that is used to measure the extent of deprivation of basic schools using 14 variables. You see that from the Bono Ahafo area to the 5 northern regions, the deprivation is massive. And this is not for 1 year, it's across the years. So in some years, you will see the Volta region coming in, and then in other years, you will see the Western North region coming in. But these regions, the Bono Ahafo area, and then the 5 northern regions, the Savannah, Upper West, Upper Eastern, they are constantly featuring in terms of intensity of deprivation, and then the extent of which these resources have not been provided for them. And what happens is that if these students are not given these needed resources, then at the end of the day, they are not receiving the quality education that they deserve. And sometimes, of course, we always measure quality education in terms of the performance of the students. Their performance in any examination that they write. But there is also variables that we use to measure quality, which are classified as input variables. So if you are not having these dexes that we are talking about, you don't have a normal school environment that promotes teaching and learning. And we know that a school environment is supposed to promote teaching environment. It shouldn't be a trap for the students. Like some of the documentaries that you've been doing, some of them will tell you that when it's raining, we need to close. Sometimes we come to school and then we see snakes around. These things are not supposed to be the situation, and these places cannot be classified as a school environment. So definitely, they will not be able to have the peace of mind to study. It will also affect even the teacher motivation that the teachers are supposed to demonstrate towards this case. Okay. And then at the end of the day, these kids are competing with children who have had access to some of the best materials and resources. How do you compare these two cases? Definitely, the level of inequality would continue to widen. And that is why we have seen this north-south gap in terms of academic achievement. And this will not change anytime soon until there is a deliberate attention on some of these areas that have these kinds of schools infrastructure, and then effort is channeled towards it. Let me give you a simple example. You see, normally when these NGOs come around, they want to supply some of these resources, okay? So these foreign donors, sometimes philanthropists and other people, they want to give some of these resources, computers, desks, and other things. They end up sharing these things in Accra, mostly into schools that have these resources already, okay? And it's because that we do not have a list of these things at the Ministry of Education or the Ghana Education Service, that when an NGO wants to make a donation, we can tell that NGO that, look, you want to really do this. It's very important. But we have these schools in this region that do not have these things. Can you channel these things to these schools and ensure that they get these resources? These are deliberate things that we need to do so that we bring these schools up to a level that the other schools are. But we see most of these resources still going back to the schools that are already having them. And by doing this, we are widening the level of inequality. And you know that in this country, most of the people that live below the poverty line are people that live either in the rural areas or in the peri-urban areas. Okay, so these people are already down there, and then they do not get the quality education that they deserve, because we know from literature that education is the most potent variable that can be used to bridge the gap of inequality. And that is why some of us will continue to speak about this, because it is only through education that you can bring that poor man's child up to a level that the rich man's child is, and then they can share certain things together. So if we do not make deliberate policies to bring these...
Dr. Anti, thank you very, very much. And my apologies for bumping in like that. We have limited time. But Divine, so on that same point, you would notice, for example, some, and I don't want to mention names, some schools in Accra are so well-resourced, private or otherwise, they even have smart boards. That's it. Smart boards. Yet you look at these ones, even the blackboard, like the most basic thing, they have to now use batteries that have gone bad, break them open, and use that with their bare hands in some instances to polish up the board to make it black again. How bad are these resource constraints, and what are their implications? After that, in fact, you can fuse that with your final words on this. How do we flip the script and make things better? So add that to your final comments, and we'll call this discussion a wrap. How do we flip the script? How do we do better for these young ones? Divine.
All right, Ben. I agree with you that we have disparity when it comes to resource allocation in our schools. If we recently did a work on availability of textbooks on the new curricula in our various schools. And again, we saw that there's disparity again when it comes to the northern and then the southern sector. So all the time we have this challenge of how we can equitably distribute resources in our education space. So that is creating this challenge we are having, the gap that we are having in terms of resource availability. You look at those in the northern sector and then those in the southern sector. I really do not know why it is so difficult to ensure that when we are distributing resources, we use equity dimension. It's just like we are using convenient ways of distributing resources. Those that are close to us, let's just let the resources get to them, and then, or those that have the camera on them the most, let's just get resources to them. So it's very important that the Ministry of Education, through the Ghana Education Service, begin to use equity dimension in their resource distribution. Otherwise, we will not see the addressing of the disparity when it comes to northern and southern sector in terms of resource availability. Now, it is true that GET fund has been capped, but somehow I want us to be fair to members of parliament. When Peter said they were not doing it, I felt they were quite not being fair to them, because we know that some of them were sponsoring private member bill to get the fund uncapped. However, even we at Africa Education Watch, we have changed our approach toward this uncapping of GET fund, because if you look at the IMF program, the GET fund is part of the conditionalities. So not until the program is over, we are not going to see GET fund uncapped. That's not going to happen. So we would have to wait till the program is over before we can again continue to push for uncapping of GET fund. That is why our approach is now that, okay, the Minister of Finance, you said that when you brought in the earmark fund capping and realignment act of 2017, what you said is that I am taking money from all these 14 statutory funds that have been capped.
Right.
They are now 13 because District Assembly is not part anymore. So all the money that you are taking from all these 13 and you are put together and say you are going to use it on priority projects, let education also be a priority. So now that's the dimension we are approaching it from. So
okay.
We need to
all right.
ensure that the finance minister, out of the money that he has taken from all these 13 statutory funds, chunk of the money is allocated towards education.
So we'll have to cap it there. Dr. Anti, you have the final word on the same points. Your final comments.
Yeah, I would want to commend Joy News and the multimedia group for doing this. I wish that you continue to push your light on other schools and we continue to discuss these things. We are giving hope to these kids. And I think that NGOs, philanthropic people, and all those people that have the resources and would want to donate should approach your team and give the needed support to these schools. I think we can continuously help to lift some of these schools up from the level that they are in and provide hope for these poor kids. We cannot leave everything in the hands of the government, because we have seen that there seems not to be any plan to ensure that these poor people get the quality education that the kids in Accra, Kumasi, Kimpus, and the other places are getting. Let's collectively support Joy News to ensure that they are able to help these ones who have been neglected by the system.
One by one, we shall get there. We shall bring these up. You can trust us here at Joy News to do that work for God and country. But we're so grateful. Divine Pair, Senior Programs Officer, Africa Education Watch, and Dr. Peter Anti is Executive Director, Institute for Education Studies. They joined the conversation. We'll be heading